I think as you go through life, you always have to have those points of reflection, and then change course if you need to. And the things that you're doing well, just keep on doing those.
Okay. Daniel, if you would share with us, just a few of those tips on how you've done it. What has worked for you? I mean, you have given the general overview of it, but I might be there when I'm stuck. I don't even know where to start from. What are the signs? What worked for you might also be as well something that worked for me, but I actually don't know which point to push and when to. Would you like to share just one or two things that, like, this is what worked for me from a personal point of view?
And again, I'll take it from two perspectives. I think in the workspace, you always know when you're making an impact or not, because
Bittencourt is an old name. It's my father's name. My father was Brazilian, 100%.
Yes.
But Bittencourt has a French origin.
Yeah.
And it's a name from the north of France at the time of what they call the Middle Age.
Yes.
And they say that there was one of those small kingdoms at that time. There were many.
Yes.
And the king had a bastard son.
Yeah.
And so this bastard son, they used to call him Bête en cour.
Yeah, Bête en cour.
Yeah, cour means court.
Yes.
And Bête means that it's a bit not very depreciative way of calling it. It's a bastard son.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It was like the bastard in court.
Yeah.
So Bittencourt becomes the name. And this name, at the time of the big discoveries, somehow came through the Canarian Islands, which are in the middle of Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
So you find Bittencourt people, Spanish.
Yeah.
And then they came to South America. So you find people with the same name in Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia. It's spread.
Yeah,
all
at some
over.
point I thought it was it was a Spanish name, and then to note that you have a French origin, so it's confusing. So that's
my French side. I don't have the family name of my mother. It's my father.
So what would be your surname? Is it Jean Philippe? Which one is the surname? Like Eddie or Kila? Which one is yours?
No, my Okila is Bittencourt. Yes.
Ah, okay.
Jean Philippe is my Christian name. Is my Baptist name.
young people at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Prince.
Straight from the secret place of Orient in Africa to the modern masters of marketing in Africa is Daniel Ogong. Welcome to the CEO Bench this week. My name is Eddie Okela, and in the studio is Daniel Ogong, who is the head of marketing at Stanbic Bank, Uganda. The long-awaited for interview is finally here. Please tap your neighbor, your cousin, and everyone at home and tell them what we have been waiting for, and the man we've been waiting for is finally in the studio. And for the next 45 minutes to 1 hour, we're going to be talking the journey of leadership, change management, and transformation. Daniel, welcome to the show. We are still bongering up to this moment because of coronavirus.
Yes.
How have you been?
But interestingly, the bongering is also, I think, a reflection of the friendship and relationship we have had for
many years.
Many years. And I think somewhere along the line we'll talk about that.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I'd like to apologize. I mean, it's been coming for a long time to finally come into this interview, but it's all because of the busy schedule. But nonetheless, I'm finally here, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you very much. You are added to the CEO status from the marketing director. We think the next place for you is the CEO moment. And so that is expected. But of course, where you are, by a default, you're already acting as a CEO because the marketing head is dealing with a lot of things in an organization. And it's understandable when we cannot have you at a scheduled time sometimes because of numerous meetings that you attend. So that is okay for us. But welcome to the bench. Daniel, the CEO bench exists to give opportunity for those who are rising to the top to be able to tell us their experience of where they have been and where they are headed to, and as well as those who are already at the top of the CEO or executive director to be able to share with us what their story have been like, and the stories of change management, leadership, and transformation is key for us on this bench. But most especially, and more importantly, you're always talking about the organization.
Yes.
We never hear anything about you people. So we've decided that we will have a 1 hour of you people talking about yourself and what you stand for and the journey of where you have been. So we want to start the interview with a very interesting opening. First of all, to ask you a question. In a nutshell, who is Daniel Ogong?
Daniel Ogong is a Ugandan. I'm married to a beautiful wife, 2 kids. My career has spanned so far just over 17 years. For those who know, I used to be in Albury's for a long time, now in the bank. And in terms of the person I am, I'm ironically, for a marketing person, you would say that I'm reserved. I like to be in the background until Eddie calls you and badgers you, for weeks to come into interviews like this. So you will typically not see me at the forefront. I like to let my team, take the lead in that sense, and I think it's good for their growth also. To be out there and expose themselves to the world.
Yeah.
So that's how I describe myself. Yeah.
Okay. One would want to know, where exactly do you hail from? We've known Daniel Ogong from the professional and personal family life. What is your origin like? Where do you come from? Which part of this country do you come from?
No, I think the name might not be obvious, but from the name it might not be obvious. But I come from a big family of Neri Ogong, who was my grandfather, now deceased. We are a big family. So I'm from Lira, a part called Kwera. That's where I'm from. That's where my dad was from. But my mom is Muganda. She's a Uganda. So yeah, I'm sort of a mixed blood in that sense. My early life was really, I was born in Tanzania, grew up there, for the early part of my childhood till about 10 years old. So yeah, I speak very good Swahili. My brother actually went back, so he's back in Tanzania, has been there since 2000. He has a family, lives there. He was also born, he was born in Nairobi, but grew up there. Yeah. Then around about 86, came back to Uganda. Yeah, most of my sort of my teenage years grew up in Jinja, a town I still hold very dear. That's where I really spent most of my teenage years. And then I think out of work and career, that's when I started, going into the corporate world, which meant you had to be largely in Kampala. So now breweries, in many ways, ushered me into that corporate world. But before that, I did some other hustling on the Kampala streets. So I'm very familiar with the Kampala streets and what it is. So when I see young guys hustling and trying to make a buck, maybe, we had a small little ad agency at the time with a couple of friends. And it was a good experience in itself. I think it very early on gave me a very tough skin in terms of how to survive. Kampala, it's not easy. Yeah. But I think if you stick it out and do the right thing, you sort of sail through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you are on the CEO bench, and today my guest on the CEO bench is Daniel Ogong, who is the head of marketing at Stanbic Bank Uganda. But Daniel did not just, jump to Stanbic Bank. And if you are a follower of Daniel Ogong and the Marketing Society in Uganda, not everyone who is a marketer is within the Marketing Society of Uganda. But if you follow some really cool stuff going on in the country, in East Africa, you definitely would have come across the name Daniel Ogong. Many years ago, I was at Nalbury's and stayed there for a bit, grew up in ranks until he became the marketing director before leaving, crossing to Stanbic Bank. Now, Daniel Ogong is credited for a lot of things. And today on the bench, we are talking to the man on the rise to the top, and we're talking about working from the brewery part of the industry and crossing to the banking sector. That's not something you take for granted. And many people have been wanting to know your story, Daniel. How were you able to cross from the brewery where things are done totally very different to the banking sector where it's like a complete turnaround things. For some reason, some of us had even run away from Stanbic Bank. But when you crossed to Stanbic Bank, a lot of people started to go back, myself inclusive, and I started to enjoy, you know, banking again with Stanbic Bank, and I'm still there. And I think that the innovation that is happening from the Stanbic Bank point of view today says a lot about you and what you're doing. You're on the CEO bench today because this program obviously looks at today's world. In today's very quite rapidly changing world, learning to read the turbulence creatively and to design our organization to ride over this turbulence is very critical to our development. First, as an individual, an ability to lead, the level of effectiveness, and the positive impact that we make in our society. Daniel, what has been your journey into trying to create a positive impact everywhere you go as an individual?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of many things, but if I'm to just maybe go back to the early part of, well, my journey, which was in our breweries, like you rightly said, I think it was a bit of a blessing that when I joined the company, I joined as a sales rep. That gave me an appreciation of the actual market and the coalface, dealing with clients or customers, you know, whether it was retailers or distributors, and the actual consumer. So you get an appreciation of that, and I worked in many parts of the country. That gave me that appreciation, but also I think gave me the grit. It gave me the humility. So even when I went through, you know, into, you know, marketing manager, then marketing director, also worked in and out of the country at the time. I think that grounding kept on. So I was close, because of the humility, you sort of you remain close to the real problem, or challenge that is facing the market. You're not devoid of it. I mean, it's very common to find me in a kafunda, even today, having my pork and talking to people. I might not know, I might not even know them. Yeah. But what that does, it just keeps you in touch. You know, you keep your pulse on what's happening. Yeah. And I think that has also carried me into the banking sector. Yes, it has been a shift. I mean, very, very, very different industries, as you rightly put. But I think I was lucky to join at a time when the banking industry or financial services sector in itself was changing and changing rapidly. And banks were struggling with the question of what do we do? How do we evolve quickly? How do we get close to the customer? As opposed to customers coming to us. How do we innovate and bring in new products and solutions into the market? That's the time I joined into the bank. So it was not a difficult one for me because the need was already there. Okay. What I think I brought to the table was a different lens on how to look at how to approach the problem. Yeah. So quick thinking, decision making, you know, that's how the FMCG world works. You try something, doesn't work, you go back, do it again. So those are the things we're doing now in the bank. We're becoming far more agile in how we do things. We're trying to, cut down our decision-making time. But I think most importantly, we're really beginning to listen to the client or the customer, spending more time with them, and do things that are meaningful, more meaningful to them. It's going to take time. We're not there yet. But at least we are clear that we have to do it.
Where you want to be, and
if we don't, we might not be in the next 5 to 8 years. Wow. If we stay static, because it's a very fast-paced industry that is changing every day.
Wow. Daniel, thank you very much for that. This program combines intellectual rigor with personal challenges, collaborations with creative expressions to things. And you are a marketer, and we want to make sure a viewer out there engages with very integrative mind maps that looks at the organizational and leadership development from a personal point of view, as well as the instantly applicable practices before becoming more effective and dynamic in the marketplace, as an individual as well as a collective people. Daniel, we want to take you through to leadership. To you, what is leadership? How would you define leadership now that you're on top of it?
I think leadership involves many things, but if I'm to look at myself and even the leaders that sort of groomed me, because I learned from them, I think leadership was really, a lot has to do with empowering and trusting your team to do the job. And that comes with a sense of maturity, a sense of comfort within your own skin. So I'm not, looking over my shoulder. Oh, if someone does well, you even give them more support as opposed to sitting back and worrying whether they're going to take your job tomorrow. Actually, that has never even crossed my mind. So I believe in empowering people. Let them make decisions. Yes, they may make mistakes along the line. It's fine, because you're going to learn from that mistake. I mean, that's how, personally, I was elevated to the position of marketing director. I remember there was a time when I just become marketing manager. The head of the marketing director at the time, Mike, he was South African. I'd become marketing manager, and was very close to another guy who used to do work for us. And, the guy told me, no, I still want to deal with you, Mike. I don't want to deal with Daniel. I don't think he even knows what he's doing. And Mike graciously told him, and we were very good friends, told me, you know what? He's my marketing manager. You're going to deal with him. He's going to make the calls, he's going to make the decisions. I actually pulled back and let me run the show. So even before I became marketing director, a lot of the stuff we were doing in the market from a brand comms perspective were being done at my level. He was just maybe guiding on the strategy and things like that. But that earlier on told me, you know what, and I learned a lot from it. I was not experienced as I am today. I made a few mistakes along the way, obviously, but what that did is it allowed me to learn very quickly. And then within a very short space of time, I then took over from him when he left to go back to South Africa. But if I hadn't gone through that steep learning curve, I don't think I would have taken on that role. And that's what I believe with leadership. If you want your team to grow, to even be better than yourself, allow them to run the show. They'll make mistakes, it's fine, but they're going to learn from it, and they'll even get better. That's my view on leadership.
Okay. Daniel, this show starts with leadership, change management, and transformation. Why leadership is because we want to know leaders make the best decision, leaders chart the course. And John Maxwell keeps saying everything rises and falls on leadership, and I agree with him as a leadership coach.
Absolutely.
But a lot of things happens to a leader. Growing up, did you ever see yourself becoming one?
I mean,
if you look back, did you ever see yourself becoming a leader that you want to be?
I think even at a very young age, depending on the circumstances, I mean, leadership, I mean, some people believe it's an innate thing, that you're born with it. Some people believe that actually, and partially it may be true.
Yeah.
But I think for me, leadership, I mean, I was in leadership positions right through my school. In primary school, when I was in Nabiliango, same thing. Whether that influenced the person I am today, I can't say for sure. Because remember, like I said, going into the corporate world, I was not a leader. But maybe those influences helped, because even at a very entry level, I think even as a sales rep, I knew I was the CEO of my region at the time. And you were actually trained to think that way.
Yeah.
You make the decisions, take full accountability, make things happen. And typically that's how I operate. I just run with it. I don't sit by to be told what to do, or I think about it with my team and whoever is supporting that journey, and we just go and do it. And so for me, growing up, of course, you don't think I'm going to be a leader. I don't think so. But I think there's certain characteristics and traits that all leaders should have, and maybe you start building those from the time you're young. You just find yourself, putting your hand up to take on a task, as an example, without being told. And that's what leaders are. You put up your hand, even in things that may seemingly be very difficult. A lot of people, I was attending recently in Cape Town, I was attending a CEO leadership
summit.
It's actually a training.
Yeah.
So you might not be wrong when you say I'm the next CEO, but maybe not of the bank, I don't know. But and a guy asked the question, and many of us from different companies in Uganda, leading, senior people. Some already CEOs, but most of us not yet CEOs. And a guy asked a simple question: Who of you is looking forward to being the next CEO of your company? And I don't think more than 30% of the people put up their hands. They're already senior in the company. They definitely have potential to be CEOs. That's why they were in that room. But it's a scary thing. So you give it up for guys who have put up their hand and are captains of industry today. Because it's not easy. It's not an easy thing. You have to make tough decisions most of the time. It's lonely at the top. So for me, it's leadership is. It's a brave thing, in my view. And I think I give respect to those who take it on. And I think in many ways, it also requires, how could I put it, a lot of support along the way. You need people who have been there, walked that mile. Of course, they'll show you what mistakes to make or not make.
And all that
so you
stuff.
You know those mentors and coaches around you, because it's not an easy thing. And all of us in these leadership positions, most of us do have mentors and coaches and people that we look up to, or who have supported and guided us along the way. And it's important.
Okay. You're on the CEO bench, Eddie Okela, Daniel Ogong here, and we are talking about change management, leadership, and transformation. Of course, the CEO bench exists to give opportunity to those who are rising on the top to speak, as well as those who are already on the top to share their experiences. Daniel, this first part of the show is quite very important for us. If you were to look back 15 years from now,
correct,
where would you be, and what would you be doing?
Yeah, 15 years ago, I was, I just joined the brewery. It was an exciting time. I was young, single, driving a big fancy car, branded. You know how it was back in the day. Driving a branded car was...
It was the big thing,
It was the big thing, whether you're in now breweries, MTN, UBL. I think... And it was perfect timing for me because it allowed you to explore and just be, a young man, enjoying life, enjoying your career, So you could argue that you've lived your life at that stage, so you don't have to compensate for it later on.
When you're older.
When you're older, but if you were to go back, I don't know. The question is what I would have done differently at that time. I don't think I would have taken back anything. I remember, like I said, I also did my hustle in Kampala. It was tough, running a business, in your early 20s. And when I got into the brewery, I told myself, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to play hard. And I did both. I played hard. I did for 3 years. Actually, on the third year, I stopped drinking and then came back. But anyway, so when I look back, I have no regrets. I enjoyed my time at the brewery. It was fun. Even at that early time, you traveled the world. There's nothing I can go back and say, maybe.
It was a regret for you?
No, not at that time. I think.
Daniel, somebody young out there is looking at you right now speaking and wondering how to get to where you are. Would you take us through what self-leadership has been like for you that has helped you to get to where you are today? Many of us don't know how to lead self, and we don't know how to deal with self. It's good for you to deal with other people, but when it is you and the world is against you, you against the world, you don't know how to deal with yourself. Many people are stuck. Not everyone who came out of school, out of Naminyama College, made it to the university, and not everyone who made it out of the university, been able to achieve the level of achievement that you have achieved today, that we're seeing today on the CEO bench. What would be your advice to that person who doesn't know how to lead self? What are those steps that you took in leading yourself to where you are that we can pick up from?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think as you grow through your career,
yeah,
there are certain traits that maybe become more important than others in leading self. So I think very early on in your career, I think it's, in my view, it's really around, if I'm to think about myself, yes, like I said, it's that discipline and hard work, because you really have to put in the time. And then also being able to, I think at any one time, improving yourself and your work, so, deliberately.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you're going to get noticed. If you join an organization and you become part of the status quo, as we saw, part of the furniture, yeah, you're not really bringing new ideas, you're not thinking out of the box. Guess what? That's how you're going to be in that company, maybe even in the same role for the next 10, 15 years, right? The people who go through the ranks are people who come and challenge the status quo, who try to think differently, yeah, about how to approach certain things in terms of delivering value for the client or customer. That is important, I think, yeah, at the early part of your career.
Yeah.
When you get later on, maybe as a CEO or a very senior person in an organization, it then now becomes about the people and focusing about the people. Like I said, giving them space to be creative, empowering them to make decisions, listening. We don't listen too often.
Yeah. And
sometimes that's all they need, bounce off ideas. Those are the things you won't do earlier on in your career, because you're not necessarily, if you like, you're being led by a leader.
Yeah.
So what he's expecting from you is, can you bring new ideas? Are you pushing hard, blah, blah. When you now become the leader, further down the line, it now becomes about, I think, being more empathetic and creating that space for your team to thrive. So if you to think about what does that mean from a self leadership perspective,
yeah,
I think it's really being about confident in your skin, having humility, so that I'm really empathetic to people's circumstances. That's how I'll sort of sum it up. So I guess you have to be clear in your mind.
Yeah.
On my journey, what traits or behaviors should I elevate based on where I am? Okay. Even as a CEO, you might find a CEO's role in terms of the traits might even be very different from mine.
Yeah.
Because now you're looking up at 1,600 people that we have in the bank, yeah, versus my team that is much smaller. So you might find the traits that now my boss needs to exhibit today might be slightly different from mine, because it's a much more complex, yeah, team that you're leading. Yeah.
Okay. The CEO bench is going to take a break, and when we come back, Daniel Ogong will dive into change management. How was he able to transition from being the ordinary boy from school, the man who moved around Tanzania, Kenya, and Ginger, into being the man of the talk and the man moving out things and changing people's lives, as well as how he changed his life. Stay right there. The CEO bench is going for a break, and when we come back, we will be talking about that. But also, you need to drop Daniel a message. Do you have a comment, kisses or disses? Daniel Ogong is the head of marketing at Stanbic Bank. Do you have some kisses there or you have some disses there? It's all welcome. It's called the CEO bench. They take anything and they can swallow anything. Right? We'll come back and read some of your comments. I see quite a number of them coming up here from all across. Thank you very much, the guys who stayed up late in the US. Daniel Ngole, Soul Reverend, your man is right here, and we'll be right back after the break.
My name is Dr. Jinpo Olowo. Thank you for watching House of Talent television. I love to inspire people. I love to talk about my experiences and how God has been able to use me in the different exposures. And through the leadership, through change management and transformation, I've been able to do a couple of things in my life. Now, are you a kind of person who is tired of your status quo? Do you want your situation to change? Are you tired of what is going on in your life? You know, change is a fact of life. We've all been through experiences in the last couple of months that have taken us to a place where we need to do something about our lives. We need to change whatever is going on. So if you have not piled up investment for yourself, you need to do that. If you've not done businesses to hold your family in future, you need to do that. Are you thinking of full-time employment? You need to be thinking about your life after employment or your business in the next couple of years. So if you want us to chat, if you want us to talk about this, please get in touch with us at SEAL Uganda on number 0772443085 or check our website www.sealuganda.com, or on all the social media handles. You can hook me up or Facebook, that is Jinpo Olowo, on Instagram, Jinpo Olowo, and on Twitter and LinkedIn. Then we can chat a way forward with you. We can help you, we can coach you, we can walk with you this journey of financial freedom. Thank you.
People at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's book face. Why are you on book face? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Prince.
Welcome back to the CEO Bench. My name is Eddie Okela, and in the studio is Daniel Ogong, who is the head of marketing at Stanbic Bank, Uganda. And of course, he is one of the people on the rise to the CEO seat. I can tell you this, and all signs are very clear at the moment. Daniel, welcome back to the show. You received quite enormous nominations from all across the world. We've got a lot of people in the US following your work in Kampala, and a lot of people in Australia, and I want to just give a shout out to all of them. Dennis in Australia, you are always watching the CEO Bench. Thank you very much for being a very faithful follower of the CEO Bench and for nominating Daniel Ogong. And of course, Daniel Ngole in the US, Professor Penny Nachayo. She's the design communication at Washington University. And these are people who are following a lot of things happening in Uganda. And of course, not forgetting my brother from another mother, all the way in Sweden and in Belgium, you know, Mr. Tine, thank you very much. These are all guys following. They have stayed awake. And of course, Coach Anthony Ndaula in the US. Yes. All of these guys have been looking forward to this interview happening. Daniel, we want to go to the first moment of, you know, the second part of the interview, which is change management. A lot of times, many of us are in the corporate world, or even just growing up, people don't know how to change their lives to being serious people and, you know, how to turn around their life moving forward. And some people often get themselves in a situation where they don't know whether either to turn it off or to turn it on. How were you able to change from being the Daniel Ogong from school to the Daniel Ogong that started to work and said, I'm going to go hard and kick it. In 3 years, I want to change my life?
Well, I guess maybe for clarity, when, like I said, I was working hard and playing hard at the same time.
Yeah.
And maybe that was really to compensate for my misery on the streets of Kampala.
Yes.
But anyway.
And we want to know the story of the misery.
That's a long story.
Because we have some people here. Rasmus said, he said, tell him to share the answer of the streets of Kampala, because that right there is where the wisdom is. Yes. Yeah,
but I think in as you're going through life, you always have to have points of reflection.
Yeah.
I know some people will say, you know, reflect every day or every week or whatever. And maybe that's good for some people, but I think for me, it's a point of reflection. And I think there's an innate gift that God gave us to, you will know.
Yeah.
You will know that, you know, here I need to pause. And
is it possible to get that sign very easily? I
think we all have it. Whether you choose to act on it or not is a different thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it could be, it can come anytime. It can come in a week. It can come in 3 years, and that could be whether in your religious life or career. It doesn't really matter what part of your life, but you just get a sense that, you know what, I need to recenter. Sometimes some of us might be lucky that someone told you, hey Chief, you need to go back to the basics. You know, you're not getting this thing right. But most people don't have that advantage of being told when they're seemingly, of course in the professional life, in work we do have systems and structures in place which can help with that. I mean, before I came here, we were just doing a reflection session as the Stanbic Exco. And it's a fireside chat where you simply speak openly about the organization, the challenges you might be facing as a leader, and how the team, you know, can support you on that journey, which is great, because some companies don't do that. But even with our teams, you know, ever so often you check in and have these conversations. And I guess that's where leadership becomes very important, where one, there has to be, as I said, an environment, you create an environment of trust where your guys can be vulnerable with you and tell you exactly what they're feeling, and vice versa, where they can give you feedback and say, Daniel, I think on this particular thing you could do better. And this is someone in your team, someone you're leading. But all those things help with shaping. But that's in the corporate world or professional world. Privately, it's a different ballgame altogether, because those structures typically do not exist. Some people will think, okay, I can go to church and sit at the front
Of the pew itself.
Of the pew itself, and I'll come back,
Yes.
you know, home feeling. I don't think it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I think it will take a lot more effort at a personal level to reflect, and usually it might come down to an answer or an action that you need to take. But like I said, you have to be deliberate about it and do it. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think as you go through life, you always have to have those points of reflection, and then change course if you need to. And the things that you're doing well, just keep on doing those.
Okay. Daniel, if you would share with us, you know, just a few of those tips on how you've done it, what has worked for you. I mean, you have given the general overview of it, but I might be there when I'm stuck. I don't even know where to start from. What are the signs? What worked for you might also be as well something that worked for me, but I actually don't know which point to push and when to. Would you like to share just one or two things that, like, this is what worked for me from a personal point of view?
And again, I'll take it from two perspectives. I think in the workspace, you always know when you're making an impact or not. That's why I like marketing, because the work we do on the brands that we are custodians of, you can see the impact of that almost immediately. Whether it's online or otherwise, you will get that feedback coming through, either in terms of how the public or the consumers respond to that new product you've launched out there, or even just comments like that. So, and then obviously over time, you just see how your brand interacts with the market shifting. I mean, you mentioned Stanbic. By the time I joined, it's already a big brand, leading bank, but there were some things we're just not getting right at the time, and we slowly shifted that narrative, and I think we're in a much better place. Yes, we still have more to do, but I think we're on the right track. So that is, I think, the easy part. So you can, and as a leader, whereas some of us do not want to be at the front line to take credit for it.
Yeah.
But you know for a fact it was because of a strategic decision I made at a certain point in time that has gotten us to where we are here today.
Yeah.
The public may not see that, but you as a person, you see that, you know that.
Yeah.
That is my impact. And that could also be with your team and employees, it doesn't really matter. But at least you can go back to a point in time, and even to the decision you made.
Yeah.
In a boardroom. I said it was because of that decision that we were able to become market leaders, say, in beer.
Okay.
Because a decision had to be made. In the personal space or private space, again, it comes down to, I think, the support structure you have around you. I think it's important.
By the support structure around you,
because those are the people who will,
brothers, sisters, mother, father.
Yeah, it could even be friends and close friends. But I think you need people in life who can be honest with you and tell you that, you know what, here, no, I think you need to change. It may not even be your mother or your father, but and I think if you don't have that, find those people. Like I said, it may not be the immediate family.
Yeah.
It may be friends that you have known, maybe hobbies.
Yeah.
Let's say I've been in school with you together, we grew up on the same street. But you need people from time to time who can tell you where they think that you might be able to change. So for me, of course, like I said, in my career, even in your private life, you've had bumps along the way.
Yeah.
I won't go into the detail of what those are, but I think in the corporate world, it's sort of easier to tell when things are not working. In the private world, it's not easy, and I think the best way is to have a support structure around you that can be honest with you. Could be your wife, even your child actually. Daddy, I don't like what you're doing here. And just that allows you to reflect and then change course.
Wow. Daniel, thank you very much. Do you want to see your bench? Daniel Ogong is the man on the bench today. And of course, Daniel, we're going to go straight to the learning organization of a personal life. the foray of that into the organization that we go to, what are the first things that we need to look into while we're learning how to organize our lives, which will help us learn how to organize the organization that we step in? Not all the organization you went to from your house on the street were very organized. You probably reached there and realized many things were completely opposite of where you're coming from. How were you able to navigate the path creatively and even still be able to make an impact?
It's interesting. I think maybe I'd look at your question very differently.
Yes.
Because for me, a lot of the learning we get in life or in our workplace comes from that environment. We don't go into the environment and say, this is what I've learned, and therefore I'm going to change it, and this is how it's going to be. Most times it's the other way around. You know, you walk into a big organization like Stanbic, and you think, oh, I'm going to change this thing overnight. It doesn't work that way because the environment is very different, the people are very different, the culture is very different. And you have to, you know, be humble enough to say, whew, this is a new space. Let me take time to understand, learn the culture, and then begin to change from within. And I think it applies in every environment, whether it's in the workplace or not. But I think you have to listen to the environment, be sensitive to it, learn from what's happening in that space, and then if you have to change it, you change it from within. It's very difficult to change something from outside because you'll get a culture shock. Because a lot of these organizations, or even people, are stuck in their own ways. For people who have had a chance to, say, work out of the country, you're dealing with people from different backgrounds, different cultures. Their view of the world is different. You know, you cannot change that. The best you can do is get into that space and find a way of navigating through that. So I don't believe that what I've learned necessarily is going to go into, say, a big organization like Stanbic and change it. If it might guide me along the way in terms of how to navigate, in terms of how to influence the leaders of that organization, but not necessarily kick the front door and change everything. In fact, I think that's disastrous because you might just end up going backwards. So I think for me is allow yourself to learn from the environment and then adapt and change from within.
A lot of time we see people, Daniel, who go into organization and just start changing, and you find people flying from this organization to another and says, man, the new boss was come. I can't stay there. And this happened. Is it they themselves who are a problem, those who are running away, or actually the bosses come and want to change everything? Have you ever been in an organization and people have viewed you like that? And if yes, how were you able to deal with it? If not, had you learned these tricks before going inside there so that when you arrived, you are more warmer to people than more, you know, cold to other people?
Yeah, I think in most cases where, and we've seen this even in Uganda, where a CEO comes and tries to change everything overnight and the organization suffers. You lose your talent, the good people leave the company, they go to other organizations, you know, your numbers start going down. It's a no-brainer. The good ones are the ones who quickly realize, oh, this is different. I need to adapt. I mean, I always hear people who have worked in Tanzania. Tanzanians are different. The way they do things at their pace and how they
shift and move things,
relate among each other is very different. So if you come with your speed and you know, and forcefulness, you'll get a culture shock. They'll edge you out slowly in their nice way. Before you know it, you've left the company. You know, I remember earlier back in our breweries, we had similar people who used to come from South Africa at the time. Because Africa is obviously very fast-paced. It's about push, push, push. And a lot of them suffered. In fact, a time came when they said, you know what, this thing is not working, let's empower now Ugandans. That's how we guys came through.
Yeah.
Because that culture difference always impacted how we did things and how we approached the market. So a lot of us now, when say getting groomed to take up these leadership positions, because we understood the culture and how to get the best out of Ugandans.
Yeah.
So for me, I think trying to come into organization and flip it, in some cases, yes, especially you know, this company was going down anyway, and you need to do a turnaround. Fine. I mean, sometimes it's necessary. You cut half of the staff, you know, fire some senior people, bring in new blood. In some cases, but when you get a well-oiled machine that is running, the last thing you want to do is to disrupt it in that nature.
Okay. Well, you are on the CEO bench and you're hearing it from Daniel Ogong, who is sharing with us how he's been able to manage change while growing up and, of course, walking the ladder to the top. Daniel, levels of leadership development plays a big role in change management. How have you been able to deal with this at a personal level and as well as at the, you know, organizational level from different organizations that you've been through, as well as the levels that you found in South Africa? At some point you had a stint in South Africa when you're transitioning from being a manager to a marketing director at UBL.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, of course, there are different ways of learning. You can go and get an MBA, you can do leadership courses. I mean, there are all those things. You can do self-help, which is fine. I mean, you can absorb a lot of stuff from all directions.
But do they work practically?
And I was coming to that. I think for me, from my perspective, the learning that I think that has been most valuable has come out of me immersing myself into that actual task or work. When I was in SAB, I was lucky that you know, they strongly believed around transferring best operating practice from one country to another. And what that meant is, you know, and other organizations like Coca-Cola do this, Unilever, they do this very well, where they move talent from one country and you go and work, say, in Latin America, US, South Africa, it doesn't matter. Even if it is a year or two, the level of exposure that you get there is immense, and the learning is immense. You can't get it in a textbook. You can't get it in an MBA class, ever. So for me, the learning has been from immersing myself into different spaces, different tasks. But even if you're not learning in that format, if I want to know everything that happens in a branch at Stanbic, then I need to spend time, real time, in that branch, understand the operations, the challenges they go through. When I come back to Crested Towers and I'm making a decision for a branch, I'm in a much better place to make the right decision because I was in that environment. So for me, learning by immersion, for me, is the best way. Whether you go out of the country and do it, or go to a branch and do it. So learning by immersion or learning by doing, for me, is by far the best way of learning. But that's not to discount the other options, but I think just fold your sleeves, get in there, and learn from that experience.
Okay. Would you credit that what you went through in South Africa actually gave you that platform to see things from a different perspective?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was working at the head office at the time. I got an opportunity to travel the world. I mean, I traveled everywhere. But we were going to those countries to solve problems or to be part of the solution. Whether it was Nigeria, you know, Latin America, it didn't matter where. And it could have been maybe a week or two that you spent in that country, but the learning you get from there, because their challenges and what they're going through is very different, their consumer is very different, how they're approaching tasks is very different. And you learn. Every time I travel, even today, I just learn. My mind is absorbing stuff. Whether it's creativity, you know, I always tell guys, if you want the best creative guys to build creativity, say with agencies, the best you can do for those guys is get them out of this market, take them to another market, potentially a bigger one, even if it is for a month, those guys will be far more creative guys because it's about exposure.
Yeah.
Of course, people believe you can go onto the internet or YouTube
and expose yourself.
No, it's very different when you're actually living in that space and interacting with the people.
Yeah.
And that environment, I mean, your mind just opens up. It doesn't matter whether it's in creativity or otherwise.
Yeah.
Just travel the world, see places, meet new people, experience new cultures.
Yeah.
All that builds into you being a better person, but being a far more creative, productive person. That's my view.
Wow. Well, we're talking about change management with Daniel Ogong right here on the CEO bench. I hope you're enjoying the interview, and I'm seeing some of your comments coming. We might not have all the time to read your comments, but obviously we are definitely going to read a few of them, and Daniel is going to respond to some of your questions. Anyway, Daniel, just before we go for a break, we want to look at the practices from the transformational leadership approach. Do you practice transformational leadership approach, by the way? And what are some of the practices that you use? Yes.
Stanbic today, as a group, we're going through huge transformation.
Yeah.
Not to go so much into the detail, but we're transforming as an organization. And the reason why we're transforming is because we want to organize ourselves better to serve you, our customer, right? And that's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
So roles are changing, departments are changing. People, some have left the company out of choice, but the intent is not to fire. We haven't fired anyone. But that's what change does. If you feel I don't fit into this new change and you're not comfortable with it, of course you're going to exit. The people who stay, I think, are going to benefit a lot from it. We're now reorganizing ourselves to work in much smaller teams, to deal problems in real time. So those small agile teams, empower them, make decisions, fix the problem, go on.
Wow.
But the key, I think, lesson for me there is, as change is happening, I think the biggest thing that leaders can do, just like what we're going through today, is to be empathetic.
Okay.
2020, COVID hit us. If there's one thing we did for our people, was to be empathetic. We did a lot of things to make sure that even the guys who were in branches were well looked after.
Okay.
As you can imagine.
So Stanbic never fired anybody?
We didn't fire anyone, we didn't cut any salary. We made sure they had transport to and from home because public transport was not there. The people who used to do their catering from next door had shut down. As you remember, restaurants were shut. We organized for them to have their food cooked and delivered to the branches. The ones who had to work long hours, we formed partnerships with hotels so that they could be comfortable in those hotels. We have put in place health and wellness programs, especially around mental health, physical health. And there's an open line for people to just talk about their problems that they might be going through. Even for the guys who are afflicted with the virus, we had a dedicated wing for them somewhere in Mulago, fully catered for by the bank, and I think that helped us to sail through that difficult time much easier. But all that came from a place of, we feel your pain, we will do everything as an organization to make sure that you're comfortable. And even externally, we did the same. We had to restructure so many loans in the hundreds of billions for our customers because we knew they could not pay back. We extended the 10 years to 12 plus months. But all that comes from a place of being empathetic. So I think as you're transforming, if there's one thing that you do right, is just be empathetic and put yourself in the shoes of that client or that employee.
Okay. Well, Daniel, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll look into the organizational culture, we'll look into the tools of collaborations that you use as an individual, as a marketer, as well as a leader, and what would you do when you become a CEO tomorrow different? Assuming you become a CEO today, what would be your first state of, the corporation address to your people? Like politicians often do, we ask, says, if you become a president today, what will be the first state of nation address? So in your context will be, if you become full CEO today, what will be the first state of your address? And of course, we'll look at the levels of organizational development, from your perspective, as well as from, the organization. This is the CEO Bench. My name is Eddie Okela, Daniel Ogong, the head of marketing at Stanbic Bank Uganda, talking leadership, change management, and transformation. I hope you're picking a thing or two from there. Amon Mukisa, thank you very much. We'll be reading your comments. And of course, Rasbi Sali, Isaac Oteng, I see you guys online. We'll be reading your comments. We may not have all the time, and I've seen some of you saying the interview should not stop. We waited for it. Can you extend? We will see. Daniel is a busy guy, and we don't want to extend it so much. Maybe 10 minutes for all of you guys to be able to ask as much questions as possible. Otherwise, the CEO Bench is going for a break. Get a coffee break. We'll be right back after the break.
The private sector is not yet fully utilized because not everybody can be employed by government. And we are looking at a future whereby more people are employed in the private sector than in government. So I think if we all work hard, if we all work together and invest in the right areas, there's been a lot of talk about value addition in the agriculture sector, in the mineral sector. If there is enough investment in those areas, I think it can create enough jobs for our children and grandchildren.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to take you to question number 4, Andrew, which is, let's talk about your journey at City Hall and the foray into the Executive Director's office, which is as Andrew Chitaka,
Very
as
interesting.
well as the Director Engineering.
Very interesting. I joined KCCA on 1st November 2011. And before then, I was
for so much.
Yes.
CEO of whatever.
Yes.
They give so much
This is the reason why you're actually on the bench.
because of my credibility. Thank you so much. But now they attack you, they vilify you, and the goal
Yes.
is to weaken you financially.
Yes.
Is to weaken your owner.
Yes.
These are slanderers.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that someone would stay up at night
Yes.
to ask and learn about me.
Yeah.
And I pray that in the next 2 months, because I know many Ugandans who travel overseas, when they go there, one of the things, because the media has been so much, and Sam Kutesa, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, has really not done a good job. He has dropped the ball on this issue. Why? So many of us are being accused of being gay killers, including me. You've just heard that person. Uganda is being accused that we kill gays, which actually is absolutely untrue. And because of this, it has affected our tourism. It affects people who go overseas to do work or study. It affects whenever you go to a conference. Hi, my name is Eddie Okela. Oh, where are you from? I'm from Uganda. Oh, you are the gay killers. And then you begin to describe. So one of the things that I've done is I've written a book, which should be coming out. I know that I keep saying the same thing, but the work of doing a book takes a long time, and I wish I could be supported. Many people who write on this subject, like Sylvia Tamale, she's supported by the Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Foundation. There is money.
There is a very big brand, and as we go on, we will probably discuss the things we're trying to do to see that things change for the better.
Good. Sean, on the CEO Bench, for everyone who is following, we're live on our YouTube studio where we actually streaming from. So YouTube studio, for everybody asking for a link, is actually House of Talent Uganda.
confident in themselves and what they are offering.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest problem. Like women will easily settle for a less pay than men would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mona Onyetodeke goes on to say, or I think this is a comment, says, I didn't know that beauty products are taxed at 60%. Whoa.
They are. I pray that changes soon, but they are.
Okay. So
Yeah.
with that challenge of 60%,
setting up the company, you're doing tours all across the world. You know, a personal account is great, but how these things are taxed becomes important for you know, for your business later on. As soon as you cross that threshold of 50 million a year, you know, you're now in
the interest become more
shares.
Yes. Welcome back to the CEO Bench. My name is Eddie Okela, and of course Daniel Ogong is in the studio here, the head of marketing at Stanbic Bank Uganda, and he is a man on a rise to the top, but also a man who is the marketing director at Stanbic Bank. It's not easy to be in that position. You are as close as the CEO, and you know, navigating path creatively that you don't know which landmine you're going to land on anytime, either from customers or from shareholders or from the executives. So those are sort of the climate and the environment that we're talking about here, how to manage them from the leadership perspective and from a change management perspective. And now we're going into the last part of the show where we talked about transformation. Daniel, obviously where you have been, welcome back to the show, where you have been and the journey that you have been to all through in life so far, where we know you from this part that we know, you have been able to make a tremendous transformation everywhere you've gone. And a lot of people here give testimony to that. I want to read for you a comment coming from Rasbi Sally, aka Godfrey Sally, known to you, says, greetings to my boss. We worked together at NBL. He supported our reggae music efforts and a band manager. Blessings, Papa. Does Stanbic Bank have any plans to support music and art at different levels? Now that you are there, banks have not been always good to support music from across all platforms. That's coming from Rasbi Sali. I think he's speaking from there. And I want to read to you another one coming from Amon Mukisa. He's head barristers at Endiro Coffee, Kampala, and he's saying, words of wisdom coming from Daniel right there. Eddie, thank you very much for always bringing such influential and very educative people to us. I think this show is doing us a favor to almost all of us who are following the show. That's so far 2 questions coming to you, Daniel. And we want to read for you a question coming from the US. Eddie Okela, my name is James. I live and work in the US. I worked with Daniel before I left. I want my name, the other name, concealed. I don't know what he's doing. But tell Daniel I've always been James. Living now and working in the US. I'm now in the diplomatic corps, so I cannot, that's why I want my name concealed. However, I trust that you will keep this. Just tell Daniel that I want to know something from him. Why is that everywhere Daniel has gone, he always causes change? He moved into the banking sector, and you can see that the impact of Daniel Ogong at Stanbic Bank is changing a lot of things. Banks used to be very slow, in my view, and very rigid in doing things. Now we're seeing banks becoming more flexible. I see that as an impact made by one Daniel Ogong. Ask him one question for me. Where would he be if he leaves the banking sector today? That's a very interesting question coming up. And of course, I have a question coming from from my friend Aineviona all the way in Sweden. Thank you very much for being Daniel Ogong. I'm a man on the rise. I'm a marketer. I'm working with the city authority here in Sweden. I want to know from Daniel, we're always looking for inspiration coming from all across the people we work for. Daniel Ogong is one of the person I look for, or one of the people I look for in the industry. Among the marketers we have in Uganda, I think we'll rate him top, as well as the local person who has made it to the top from nowhere to somewhere. Not in the past, we used to have South Africans coming and dominating the market in Uganda, but now the likes of Daniel Ogong is actually Stanbic Bank working with the South African. Ask Daniel Ogong for me, how does that make him feel like? And where would be his next stop? Seems everybody wants to know where the next stop is. Let's start from there, Daniel.
Yeah, Rasby, it's been a while, and you need to look for me and we have a drink. And I guess we need to have a long conversation around music and the industry. Like you rightly put, I've supported that industry in my previous life, to some degree in the bank. But I think what I can say is where the opportunities to support music or the arts in general, it's a conversation I'm happy to have. And you can reach out anytime. I'm available. You have my number. It has never changed. So we can have a drink and then really go into that detail. But I'm very open to supporting that. To James, you've concealed your name, but it's good to again hear from you. In terms of, I think your question is around what next?
Yeah, what next? When you leave the bank, where would you go? It was a comment and the question, where would you go?
I think
what would be your next stop?
I think what people don't know is actually when I left Now Breweries, my intention at the time was actually to retire and go do, my own things. But then, I got a call from Stanbic Bank, and I met quite a number of executives before I accepted to take the role. But I think in that conversation, it was very clear, yes, what the organization wanted to do differently. And when I say differently, not so much about from a brand perspective or whatever, it was really about what they wanted to do different in the market.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what, I think it just gave me a sense of purpose.
Yes.
As to why I should join the bank.
Okay.
So if where I go next will purely be driven by the same. It might be within the group, it might be outside the group, but I won't jump onto the next job because it's a bigger salary, no. In fact, going into Stanbic, I went at the exact same pay. It will be driven by purpose in terms of what impact the organization wants to deliver for Ugandans. If it fits with my purpose, then yes, I can take up that role. But at the moment, I'm loving my job at Stanbic. I think there's still a lot more we need to do. The change has only just started. So yeah, you'll still be seeing me in the bank for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Okay. There was a question from a lot of questions from I
think it was around the same lines.
Yes, where would you go?
But I mean, if I was to think about actual exiting the corporate world, I think for me it's just maybe taking back a back seat. And making sure that my little enterprises that I've set up now thrive. Okay. I don't intend to. I hate to say this. I always tell guys. One thing I'm not going to do is become a farmer in the bush.
Yes.
I don't have
the patience,
the intention of it.
Yes.
I have my reasons why, and I need to be convinced otherwise. But for those who are doing that, that's fine. I think there are other things.
So you will not end up in farming like many of the people say, I've now retired to farming.
No, that's not for me. I've just not been passionate about it. But yeah.
Daniel, let's run through this as we close the show from the transformative point of view. What kind of transformation would you like to leave at Stanbic Bank? Or are you having at Stanbic Bank at the moment where you are, and what kind of legacy would you want to leave behind at Stanbic Bank? And I want you to run it from the personal effectiveness and resilience. As a person, what sort of, strength or things that you're putting in that place to see that that happens? And of course, what kind of organizational culture would you want to live within the marketing space of Stanbic Bank as you want to live, as well as in the marketing space in Uganda? We know we see it, but how can we touch, continue to touch the, that from Daniel Ogong going forward? And what kind of tools of collaborations would you want to have in future? When I call it tools of collaboration, it's just touch a few things that you think we can use and learn from you going forward. And lastly, we want to look at the levels of organizational development you want to live as a marketer in the industry, as well as at Stanbic Bank where you are. And my very last thing is practices from the future. Where would you be 50 years from now, 20 years from now when you're out of the bank?
Yeah, I hope I remember all the questions. But I think for me, in terms of transformation.
Yes.
I think for me, I think what is important is, how can I put it? I think we spoke about transformation from a personal organization perspective,
yes.
and how we're managing that. I think that was clear, but I think in terms of how we transform marketing, branding, going forward, I think for me what is important is whatever we do, it has come from a place of impact. A lot of the comms and brands, I think we're past that stage of just making noise about stuff. I think we have to start doing stuff that is going to have impact on our audiences. When I watch an ad, I should get something out of it, something that is going to improve me as a person, or just my life in some sense. So I think the balance of the traditional, nice quality advertising, it has a humor in it, it's shot well.
Yeah.
But what's the message? I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
I think we've lost that a bit. Some of the adverts you see, the message is quite shallow. And I think that's a missed opportunity. I think advertising creativity can go a long way in influencing the world generally. Yeah. I mean, I had an opportunity of going to the Cannes festival in Nice in France. And a lot of it was talking about that.
Yeah.
How does the creative industry drive change in society, change in the world, generally speaking? Talk about the topical issues around gender and inclusivity and all these things. How do we use advertising? And there's some good examples if you go. Some brands that have used advertising to, in a very creative way, tackle those issues.
Yeah.
And I think we need to evolve to that level.
Okay.
So I think my plea out there is for those guys in the industry, especially creative industry, think about your craft as a way of transforming people and society. And I'm sure the creative guys will pick up on this and see how to do that.
Yeah.
And in the bank, we have tried to do that in our thematic advertising. And that's one thing that I'm passionate about, and hopefully we'll be able to continue doing that going forward. There were several other questions.
Yes, so we were looking at what kind of, the tools of collaborations you want to use, the organizational culture within your marketing space. You've talked already, right?
I think I already sort of touched on that.
Yes.
I think as an organization, we're already, and in a sense, it's interesting. In a sense, COVID helped in a sense, because it forced us to be very, very agile, and think very differently, do things very quickly. And yes, a lot of the thing is now we're doing a virtual, but which funny enough has helped, because it's very easy to create a team of 5 people to address a certain challenge our organization may be facing. And right now we have what we call work streams.
Yeah.
There are possibly maybe 50 plus work streams happening in the bank today, tackling different issues across the bank. And for me, that just exemplifies how people have now decided to come together to address real issues. Some of them are happening even at a branch level, which is great. So I think the culture is already on its way.
Yeah.
We just have to empower more, celebrate those efforts more. But I think we're already on that path, at least as Stanbic. If the other organizations are not doing that, I think my view would be to do that, create smaller teams that are now going to solve problems. I mean, the other day, Safaricom announced that they're changing the entire organizational structure. They're creating what they call tribes, which will have leaders, and the tribes really is teams.
Yeah.
And each team will be given a specific task that is addressing a customer challenge.
Okay.
And they go and do it. Fully empowered, fully financed, go and do it, fix the problem, and just report to the exec team maybe every 2 weeks or a month, whatever it is. And I think that's where the world is going. But that's from an organizational standpoint.
Yeah.
I think if I'm thinking generally speaking, I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we create more collaborative spaces?
Yeah.
I see that beginning to happen in some shape or form. I'm not too close to it, but I think there's something called Motive down in the industrial area.
Yeah.
I think that's just the intent. You know, we have the innovation village. Just create spaces, whether physical or otherwise, where people can just come into this space and collaborate, exchange ideas, because that's how you learn from other people, if it is outside the organization. So I would encourage that, even in a virtual sense. I mean, the conversation we're having today, as an example, in some sense, you know, it's a collaboration of sorts between me, you, and the audience.
So many other people. About 15,000 people, about 1.8 million people in diaspora.
Yeah, and we're exchanging ideas. People are learning a thing or two from this conversation. And I think that's how we need to take it forward.
Okay. Daniel, lastly, this program is relevant for people who are already working and in existing organizations, establishing their own organizations or preparing to enter into the workplace. Some are already having the organizational context immediately linked to the concepts and practices, you know, to their context. In your context, for example, you're already working and doing these things. What legacies would you like to leave at Stanbic Bank when you're done, as well as in the marketing industry when you're done?
It's interesting. I think the legacies, are less about you, the person, but your work. I think for me, I'm a strong believer that you have to be remembered by your work. When I left Now Breweries, possibly most people don't even know that there was a Daniel Ogong somewhere who transformed some of those brands, and the work that we did behind the scenes with the team. Maybe, the majority of the people don't know.
Yes.
But what they know is that, you know, these are some of the best brands we have in the market, and we are passionate about them. We love these brands. Same thing with Stanbic. Like I said, I lead from the back. My team does pretty much all the work. The legacy is exactly the same. I want to leave Stanbic with the comfort that we have created an organization and a brand that is genuinely passionate about the customer, that is genuinely loved by the customer. If we did that, which we will, that's the legacy I want to. And someone made the comment that they're seeing that change beginning to happen, which is fantastic. So if you think about a bank that one would want to be associated with for whatever reason, the first name that should come up is Stanbic Bank. We love those guys. They may not even put a finger onto why they love the bank, but they know they love it. And for me, if we did that, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Daniel, thank you very much for coming to the show today. And when was the last time you cooked for your wife?
Maybe 2 days ago. No,
phone calls, too many phone calls, and you still get time to cook for the wife.
Yeah, for the wife, for the kids. I'm a very basic guy. Sometimes I find myself in the kitchen.
Okay.
If I have to prepare something, it's not a biggie. And I think for me it's good because my son is obviously at home now. My daughter, but especially my son, he sees me doing these things. And I just hope that when he grows up,
you will pick up from there.
Yeah.
And lastly, the last question for you to sign out. Assuming you were appointed the next CEO today, either of Stanbic Bank or any other organization otherwise, what would be your first statement to the 1,500 or to the 5,000 staff that you will find in that organization as the new CEO on top on that day?
I think for me, whether it's Stanbic or any other organization, if I'd spend possibly the first 90 days of my time as CEO, just going back and making it absolutely clear to everyone why we exist in the first place as an organization. In other words, what's our purpose? What are we here to do? What impact we want to deliver? Everything else then falls in place. A lot of organizations don't have a clear purpose. If they do, they don't articulate it well. Even before you get to the strategy, just be clear, because that's the one thing that is always going to drive people out of their beds to go to work, because they know that their work is bigger than them. They're trying to create a change out there in the country or in their communities. So I think for me, that's the first thing. That's where I would start. Clarity of purpose, and then go into the rest of it.
All right. Well, you've heard it from Daniel. Thank you very much for coming to the show today. Any other thing you want to add for us today as we go?
No, at the beginning I said, you know what?
Yes.
It's been a while.
Yes.
But we spoke in the break about your journey. But
yes.
For me, just to say well done. And,
thank you very much.
Keep doing what you do.
Thank you very much. I had to make everyone know that you signed you were the first person to believe in the biggest, wildest dream I've ever had in my life. And I think that moment, that day at Protea, and a number of calls that happened in South Africa, and when you came back here, the three gentlemen that I met that day that believed in the wildest dream ever. If I ever achieve that one, Uganda will never be the same again. I can tell you that the marketing industry of Uganda will be very different. So you signed that, and of course, you also have a big signature of making sure that the hip hop music industry actually finally takes off to what we now see today. The foray of that and the likes of Navio holds you a lot. The GNL of this world holds you a lot. So yes, there are usually people who believe in big dreams. Daniel is one of them. So seeing you here today is another point. Otherwise, thank you very much for being a part of the show, Daniel, and we're looking forward to having a lot more conversation with you going forward. And I think I will give you a first interview when I hear that you have become the new CEO somewhere. I'll look for you. Well, to all of you out there, thank you very much for being a part of the CEO Bench, growing bigger and better. Until next week, same time, same place. The CEO is signing out, Eddie Okela, and of course, Daniel Ogong. Until next week, keep it the CEO. You never know, you might be the next CEO on the bench.
It's a CEO bench, so usually people want to assume that all CEOs are over-learned and stuff like that. So I will change the script this time around. I consider myself a certified hustler.
If I'm looking to know who you are you Ugandan? If yes, what are the values that define you as Ugandan?
That's the easiest question, I think, to answer. I am a typical Lao man from Erute North, in a place called Ogur, and where I will be laid to rest is in a village called Ogong. So if you go there and you just say Otoa Tony, they won't really know me because my father is also Otoa Tony. You have to ask for Junior, and when you're asking, you have to ask with an accent. Junior Tikwene, where is Junior? And they will identify me. But I'm typically Ugandan, only Ugandan, from Lira. I pride myself from being from Lira. Earlier on, I was joking and saying I'm the coolest Lango south of Karuma. When you cross Karuma, there are so many. But when you're down the south after Karuma, I think I'm number one.
Wow. Well, now that you know Tony Otoa is Ugandan, and of course, what are the values that define you as a Ugandan?
I think it's the love for country, love for nation. You know, truth be told, the country is in a lot of, it's a crisis. Leadership crisis, economic crisis, social crisis. There's so many mismatching areas. But at the end of the day, it's home. You know, you cannot run and abandon your home because of the issues in your home. I think that then creates an opportunity for you to do something to change what's happening and what you see as a crisis. So in terms of what I see as a value, or what I take out of that for me, I think is just the love for country, the need to serve country the best way I can. And I mean, I can't say I can change everything, but the little I can do to create a difference, I think is more meaningful.
Wow. Mr. Tony Otoa, growing up, what did you want to be in life? And what was the journey like for Mr. Otoa?
Yeah, you know, my father is crazy. My father would call us and he would show me the compass. The idea was supposed to be a pilot. You know, the planes would fly over our house and my father would be like, yeah, you're going to be a pilot. But of course, as you grow, you realize that you have so many things that really define you. I was never a sportsman. So I enjoyed a lot of debate and, you know, a lot of indoor activities. And that is, I think, what really drove me into some of the things that I do up to today. Public speaking, the love for debates and really a lot of intellectual discourse and all this stuff. But besides that, I think it's also the fact that I won't lie. I didn't know what I wanted to be.
Welcome to this edition of the Coffee Break. This is House of Talent and my name is Atengi Emmanuel. Remember, this is the show that we get to talk all about coffee, what's happening in the coffee business, different elements about coffee. And back in the studio today is someone we all love, someone we've taken a long time without seeing. I love saying it, the Coffee Messiah is back. It's like the second coming of Jesus. So the Coffee Messiah has come back. Amon, welcome back to the show.
Well, it's nice to be here again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. You've actually been gone for a while. I don't know, were you like out converting people, you know, bringing people more into the coffee side?
Well, I've been trying to make ends meet and yeah, happy, healthy, so it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I hope your ends have met.
Yeah, they have, definitely they have met.
Well, to complement the Coffee Messiah, we have someone else in the studio, the first female guest we ever had on this show. And at the beginning of the show, she told me that since we have a Coffee Messiah, we should have a coffee goddess. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Swabra Banks, to the show. Swabra, you're very welcome to the Coffee Break show. I know like a lot of people out there, whenever you tell them your name is Swabra Banks, okay? The Banks part is not a Ugandan name, totally not, okay? So how did you end up with that name?
That's a name that was given to me by a sister of mine, actually, because she used to believe in me and she was like, you're going to get a lot of money. Yeah, so she gave me the name Banks. Yeah.
So have you reached that point where you have that a lot of money?
Yes, I thank God, yes.
All right, so probably after this we're going to the bank with Swabra Banks. Yeah, but that's interesting. Welcome to the show. We just want to start off with basically your profile. Who is Swabra Banks? Who is I'm a Barista? You know, where did you grow up, and how did you end up into the coffee business?
Okay, so Swabra Banks is a barista. Yeah. I grew up in Entebbe Road, Ndege, and I went to Mutesa, One-Way University. I was doing mass comm. And then how I ended up into coffee, it was through a friend of mine who is now like a brother to me. He pitched this coffee thing to me. Of course, I didn't have interest in coffee, and I had to go and enroll in the academy. And then as I was doing the coffee course, I fell in love with the coffee.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. So you talked about, you know, in Mutesa One, you actually did a course in mass communication.
Yes.
So growing up as a child, what did you want to be? You know, people always want to be a lawyer, some want to be a pilot. I had some kids say they wanted to be a taxi conductor because they hold a lot of money. So growing up, what did you think you would be in the future?
I wanted to be an actress, actually, because I loved movies ever since I was a young girl. And I think I love the camera from day one. That's why I went to mass comm. Yeah.
So are there any hopes of you getting into the movie industry in Uganda?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I'm now taken by the coffee industry.
Well, that's very interesting. Amon, to hear from you. I also know that, you know, growing up you wanted to be something. You know, what did you want to be when you were a kid growing up? I know there was nothing like a barista in your mind. I don't even think you knew about coffee at that time. So, from my perspective, I think you wanted to grow up and be a model, but you can correct me on that.
Why would you choose a model? Well, me from, I wanted to be a journalist.
Okay.
I think I realized that in my P6. We had a teacher who was doing journalism at the same time teaching us SST. So this guy was like a lifestyle guy. He used to be a very, very, very inspiring guy. So I liked him from the start. So I'm like, okay, I want to be a journalist. So that's how I picked a dream of becoming. And at least I'm trying to achieve that, you know, because right now, if I'm doing mass comm, at the same time, this we're doing coffees, so I'm still on the track. I'm not like Swabra who's already taken by coffee.
You know, the most amazing thing is that actually all the three of us here have done mass comm at a certain level.
Wow.
Okay, and
so we have one thing in common.
Yes, we have something in common at least. The other thing we have in common is that, you know, we all passionate about coffee, which is a very good thing. So, Swabra, you told us that a friend of yours, who's now like your brother, introduced you to the coffee industry.
Yes.
So, I know that when someone introduces you, there is always a pitch they give you. Yeah. It's like if I want someone, let's say the Coffee Messiah always goes out to convert people, and he has to give a pitch of why should I join the coffee business instead of actually starting a boutique, okay? Which one will make more sense? So what were some of those things that he told you about the coffee business that actually pulled you into it?
Actually, the most interesting part about it was he also didn't know anything about coffee. he wasn't a barista by then. He just told me, you have to do this course and then come to Dubai and make a lot of money, because you know, the coffee business, there is money. So I also went into it to study, to go and get money. But along the way, of course, I fell in love and I decided to stay in Uganda.
All right, so you talked about Dubai. Most of the people we've had on the show have had some experience with the Middle East. We had a guy who worked in Kuwait as a barista. So moving from Uganda to Dubai, did you go and work as a barista, or you went and got involved, you know, into other businesses?
I went to Dubai way back. I think that was around it was around 2014, but it wasn't coffee. Yeah, I knew coffee after I came back to Uganda. Yeah, because he was like, now that you're back for your vacation, you should do something different and then come back as someone new. Yes, that's when I went into the coffee industry.
Amon, I remember last time we were talking about you not wanting to go out of the country, you know, to become a barista. And I don't know if your mind has changed since then, yeah. But like most of our baristas go to Dubai, they go to UAE, yeah. I really haven't heard of any barista who has gone maybe to America, maybe to Europe. Is it easier as a barista to go from Uganda to the UAE than it is to go maybe to Europe or to America?
Well, guys do go in the UK, in the US. Guys do go, but only that these people go in the line of maybe doing hotels, not coffee shops. Because it's because someone is easy to access that side, and whoever goes that side, now there's a lot of connection that side, so people get to know that, okay, Emma went to UAE. But when someone goes maybe to UK, it will be hard for someone to know, because maybe like it's a family or a family friend who gets to know that, you know what, Emma went to UK. But people do go that side, and they make a lot of money.
That's very interesting. Still talk about Dubai. I know there are very many differences basically between Dubai and Uganda, okay? And going there, I believe there was that cultural change. So how were you able to deal with the culture change? Because I know that Uganda is more of a freestyle kind of place, and Dubai is really a strict place, especially when it comes to ladies. So how were you able to manage the culture change from Uganda then to Dubai?
It was really tough. It was tough for the first months. I think the first 2 months, and then of course the fact that I went to Dubai as you know, like looking for a job and all that. There are also other people who come to Dubai that are not from that country. So that kind of gave me a sense that I'm not alone in this. So of course you have to make friends. You have to learn the language, because learning the language is the most important thing to do. So I caught up with the situation.
Okay, so did you learn the language?
Yes, of course.
Okay, that's very interesting. So
I like the language.
If I went to Dubai and wanted to order a cup of coffee, okay, how would I say that in Arabic?
I don't remember.
So basically you learned a few things, like maybe greeting,
yes.
You know?
I used to know all of it actually, but it's been a while. I don't remember all of it.
Because in most cases, when you learn a language, what you get to know is how you greet and everything's like to keep you running in case you get lost. It's like those guys who come to Uganda. What they need to know is Mwasuze Mutia, Olibulunji, something like that. But they can't go beyond that.
I like how you say that, Olibulunji.
Because that's how they say it. That's how they say it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I also believe that dealing with people, basically when you're a barista, or at that time you're a waitress, okay? You have to deal with people, okay? And customers are really different. You'll find a customer who's really nice and sweet. Then there are those who are backing orders at you. You know, there are those that you can't deal with. So did you ever find yourself in a situation whereby you were presented with a customer who was really harsh, okay? And how did you deal with that situation?
The first thing these people do is to train you, customer care, how to handle clients, because of course they also know how clients behave. So you start up with everything like the day when you know what's coming. Yes, because you're in a country that is not yours. So every time you could get maybe a harsh client, you could know how to handle. You just be polite and apologize, and then you get the order and then you move on.
Okay, interesting. To Amon, I know that in Uganda there are certain places that I've gone to and there's totally no customer care. You enter a restaurant, you order for something. First of all, I believe that when you go to a restaurant or to a coffee shop, okay, someone is supposed to come and attend to you, all right? But there are some places that in Uganda you go to a hotel, you go to a coffee shop, and you really have to call the waiter or call the waitress to get served, okay? Amon, how has been your experience in Uganda in relation to customer care, especially where you work? Are we up to the mark of good customer care, or we still need a lot of help in that part?
Well, to be honest, in Uganda we still have the poorest customer care. Because in most cases, these guys who are in customer care or customer service, most of them are either in school and they're just doing the job for the sake of doing the job, but they are professional customer care attendants. These guys have studied this. They have gone to like a room and studied this. They have gotten training, so they know how to handle a person. But in Uganda, it's really, really hard to find a very, very good customer care. For a case of where I have been in a few places, I haven't had that bad experience with customer care because I've went to a coffee shop and I've received instant care, instant customer service, and it's been a nice experience. So I haven't received that bad service.
All right. According to me, I think that just like you said, we really haven't reached the mark. We still need a lot of help when it comes to the customer care industry. And I believe that most of the time, you know, you just get a job and there's really not much training put into it. You just start working and you don't know how to deal with people. I believe that the most important part when it comes to such a service industry is not even the coffee you're brewing or it's not the food that you're giving. It's basically how you treat customers. Okay, that's what keeps them coming back. Okay. So Abra, before we go for a break, basically how we got to you was that you were blowing up on social media. Okay. A little bird told us that there's a certain barrister that is now blowing up on social media. Okay, and it really caught our attention. We're like, oh, okay, you know, baristas are actually getting out there. You know, the coffee business is starting to grow. So before we go for a break, I just want you to tell the viewers out there, okay, who are you on social media? What is your name on social media? Are you Swabra Banks? Are you someone else on social media? Because sometimes people have aliases, you know. I'm one on Facebook, I'm one person, then on Instagram I'm another person. So before we go into a break, just tell the people who you are on social media.
On social media, I am a barista.
Okay.
Yes.
That's both on all your social media
all my
platforms?
social media platforms, yes.
Okay. Yeah, please.
That is Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Okay. We're going to get into a break right now. In the studio, we have Amon Mukisa, the coffee messiah, and we also have Swabra Banks, the coffee goddess, and me, the coffee human, Ateng Emmanuel. We'll take a break right now, and when we get back, we're going to talk more about how you can brand yourself in the coffee business. Stay right there. This is House of Talent Television. Welcome back to House of Talent. This is the Coffee Break Show where we get to talk everything about coffee. And in the studio with me I have Amon, the Coffee Messiah, and Swabra Banks, the Coffee Goddess. And basically we've been talking about her life. Where did she start from and how did she end up in the coffee business? We also had Amon telling us about his experience and what he wanted to be, you know, when he grew up. He said he wanted to be, you know, a journalist, okay, which I believe that you're studying, okay. You got me wrong. I thought you wanted to be a model, but here we are.
Why did you think I wanted to be a model?
Maybe you look like one.
Yes. I mean, when someone looks at him, you know, you can see the well-kept beard, the well-kept hair, the nice shirt. I think it's something that you really need to look into.
Maybe I should.
Yes, you should. Okay. At least we'll say we know someone famous. Yeah, but like I said before, we went into a break. We're just getting into basically branding in the coffee business. Okay. Before I saw your profile on Instagram, I really hadn't seen any other barista who would put themselves out there. You know, it's like being a barista is only what you do when you're at your coffee shop or when you're at your place of employment. Okay, it's not like how you have all these social media influencers, you know, always putting out their videos, you know, tweeting on Instagram. I really haven't had anything from a barista. Okay, and it's good to have someone with experience. Okay, we just want to know, how do I start? If I was a layman, I've gone to, you know, barista school, I'm a barista. Where would I start when it comes to branding myself as a barista?
I think the first thing you have to do is get the passion.
Okay.
Yes, because you can do everything, but as long as you don't have the passion for it, you're not going to make people love it. Okay. So at the end of the day, you have to fall in love with it first, and then do some research. Don't be in the comfort zone. You have to do some research, know more about the industry, be down to earth. You don't have to show off and all that. And have content. You should have content. Always have content. People love to see what is unique about the industry. What is she doing other people are not doing? How come she's doing this and other people are not doing it? Let me follow her. Let me try to do as she's also doing. So at the end of the day, you make people love what you're doing. If you also love what you're doing.
Yeah, so basically the first thing you're saying is have a plan.
Yes.
Okay? Sit down with yourself and say, you know what, this is what I want to achieve.
Yes.
Okay, these are the steps to it. All right, so I have a plan. This is what I want to do. Okay, but I'm not yet out there on social media.
Yeah.
One of the first things when you're basically picking a name, when you're picking social media platforms or what you're going to be on social media is picking a name.
Yes.
Okay? The name, I believe, has to stand out.
Yes.
The name has to be catchable, something that will stay.
Yes.
All right, so you use I am a barista. Okay. How did you come up with this name? I believe that there were countless other names you'd have just used for Banks.
Yeah.
I believe that in itself is a very good name.
Yes.
So how did you end up with I am a barista?
I'm one person who is very proud about being a barista. So the name just came up because I'm proud of being a barista. And, you know, people used to call me Banks. And I wanted to stop that, to stop people to call me Banks. And maybe start calling me barista. So I wanted to send a message out there that I am a barista. Yes, I'm not a barista.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Amon, when it comes to branding, okay, what would be the first step in your regard, in your perspective?
Well, when it comes to branding, I think it's the cause and the value you stand for, because branding involves personalization or personality. Then it involves this other side we're putting out. Because I try to ask myself, why are we not having baristas taken as ambassadors of certain things? For example, we're having different artists come out and they're ambassadors of tourism, and yet coffee is a very, very key major factor in maybe tourism. Why don't we have these baristas come out and they're like, you know what, Swabra Banks is the ambassador of tourism in terms of coffee, you know, she's going to influence coffee growing in a park or in Gulu. So why don't we have that? I think, like as Swabra is saying, you need to know why you're doing something, and you need to come out of the cage and start doing that. Because if we have various baristas have traits of branding themselves, for example, if I am a barista and I know, okay, I want to go beyond being the station, you know, I want to be out there. I want to show that I'm a proud barista and I can do whatever it takes to be that good person who can be approached and they give me business and I want to influence for a certain cause, you know?
Yeah.
So that would be a good thing. So like Sobra is saying, I just want to know how she came out with the name I am a barista, because it's really working. Because yes,
thank you.
Someone asks you, who are you? I am a barista. So how did you come out with that?
As I've said before, I'm proud to be a barista, and I am a barista. It's not special. It's just that I wanted to send a message to people that I'm a barista now, and I'm proud to be one. That's how I came up with the name, just like that. I am a barista.
Have you been approached by different companies to like do business with you because of I am a barista?
Yes, because everyone is like, what does barista mean? And then they have to look it up, and then they're like, oh, it means someone who does this and this and this. Because a barista is something huge. A barista doesn't just make coffee. No, we make a lot of things. You know that we make juice, we make ice things, and all that. Yeah, so being a barista is something that really makes people want to know who a barista is, not just Swabra Banks, because someone will be like, oh, Swabra Banks and I see coffee, or maybe she's in the coffee business.
Now, Emma, you see, like, she's speaking about being a barista. Most of us didn't know that a barista does coffee, does juices, does cocktails, various beverages. Yeah. So at least if we brand ourselves as baristas, we get to put our image out there, and we'll get some business coming through.
Yeah, I remember someone telling me that the first time he heard the word barista, he thought it was
a lawyer.
A lawyer.
yeah, because you know, let me tell you something. I was having a conversation with now his spokesperson of NUP, Joe Senyon. Yeah. So the first time I met him, he asked me, "What do you do?" Because it was after my senior six. I'm like, I'm a barista. Wait. I'm studying to be a barista. For you already a barista.
Yeah, so most times people actually get it confused. We still haven't reached that place in Uganda where we know what a barista is. We can't really put the line between a barista of law and a barista as someone who does coffee. So I have my plan, picked out my super cool name. All right, I'm ready to go on social media. Okay. What is that brand identity? Every time I look at Swabra Banks' account, every time I look at Amon's account, what are some of those messages that you want me to get without you ever talking to me? There are some social media handles of different people that you see, okay, and you just get certain keywords immediately, like this one is friendly, this one is really nice. What are some of those words that come to someone when they log onto your Instagram page?
In most cases, when I'm posting something on my Instagram, I make sure I'm sending out a message. It doesn't have to be coffee specifically. It can be something else. Yeah. So I always want to show people that a barista is not just making the latte art and all that. Yeah. It comes right from the garden to the cup. Yeah. So in most cases, when I'm posting something on social media, I make sure I communicate through my posts or my pictures or my anything that a barista does this and this and this. It's not just coffee. It's a lot of things. Yeah. So when someone looks onto my page, it's like, oh, even a barista does this. Oh, even a barista does this. Yes, that's what I look at when I'm posting anything.
So I actually love that perspective, showing people that you don't have to be boxed up in only one thing.
Yes.
I'm a barista, but I can actually do other cool things. Yeah. So Amon, I remember I think it was last week when I met you at Enduro. I saw you basically interacting with one of your customers. Okay, and it was a good thing to see, because that interpersonal relationship you have between a barista and a customer is a very important thing. Okay, so what are some of those qualities that your customers have told you that you have? Some of the things that they've complimented you about that actually identify you as Amon Bukisa, the barista.
Me as a person?
Yes.
Well, I think most of them have complimented about the communication skills, because it all goes down to the communication skills. Those simple communication skills. Most people tend to think it's just a thing, but it's a very, very, very crucial thing. Because just imagine someone is talking to you, but you're not paying attention to them. For example, I'm speaking to Swabra, but I'm looking at you. that's already a turn off.
Yeah.
Someone needs attention, needs to be shown that, okay, I'm talking to you, you know, I'm attending to you. So if you're attending to a client or having a conversation, because sometimes you can't be busy on a station. She's a trainer right here.
Yeah.
I don't know why she trains her students, for example, to handle a busy station. But just imagine now I have a busy station and a certain Edwin comes on station and is like, okay, he wants to have that conversation.
Yeah.
How are you going to handle that, Edwin? To show him that, you know what, Edwin, I'm busy, you know, but let's talk after having this whole mess worked out, you know? So that's what keeps you going, or keeps a brand of a barista compared to someone who's going to just come, okay, I'm busy. And just comes out and say, oh, why Edwin? Don't I want to be busy in Vaco? You know, something like that. So it's a way how you interact or how you communicate with this person that keeps you in that same state they see it. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's not just about, you know, like I used to think before, you know, I knew about the whole barista thing. I used to think being a barista is basically just pouring coffee for someone.
It's called, you know, the word is a barista, which means it comes from the bar, then barista, you know? So it means it's a bar, someone can access that bar, you know? So if someone accesses that bar, you don't have a right to chase them away. That's because it's a bar.
So you have to go basically above and beyond what you do. It's not just about giving them the coffee. You have to create some sort of relationship.
It actually means a bartender who is a star. That's what it means.
Maybe Emma, I just want to know from Swabra, what are you using as your brand to add value on the coffee industry? Is it just Swabra, oh, I am a barista, just for the sake of social media? But how are you using I am Swabra as a brand to add value on the coffee industry, and how are you doing that?
First of all, I'm doing that through my trainings. I make sure I give the real content, the genuine content, and then quality. A lot of people are in the business, but they don't, you know, give quality out there. They prefer getting a lot of money without even putting in. So to me, it goes back to quality. You have to make sure you give people quality, both the knowledge part of it and the, you know, the coffee part of it. Yeah, quality.
Okay. Before we get into another break, okay, I know that, okay, now we have the plan, we have the name. Basically, now I want people to know that, you know what, let's say I'm Emmanuel, I'm a coffee human, because I have a goddess and a messiah here.
No, now you're a coffee genius.
You know, so these are the different words. I want people to know I'm friendly. I want people to know that I'm not only a barista, there's basically other things that I do, okay? How do you go about creating your content? Because